Some fortunes come with strings attached. Others come with deadlines that change everything. My name is Claire Hartwell. I inherited $2 million at exactly 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. There was just one condition, a condition that would force me to make an impossible choice in 13 minutes. The call came while I was closing up the bookstore where I worked. My Aunt Margaret's lawyer spoke with urgency in his voice. He explained what my eccentric aunt had done. The inheritance was mine, but only if I was legally married before midnight. Not engaged, not dating someone seriously, married. I had 13 minutes to find a husband, to get to a courthouse, to say vows that would bind me to a stranger. The clock was ticking. My mother's experimental cancer treatment hung in the balance, the one our insurance wouldn't cover. And that's when I called the only person I could think of, Ethan Cole, my college friend, the man I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. I knew he was a lawyer now. Overworked, probably. From what I'd heard through mutual friends, he lived alone in some apartment downtown, always working late, always saying yes to one more case. The kind of person who might still be at his desk at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I dialed his number with shaking hands. "Claire, it's almost midnight. Is everything okay?" His voice was exactly as I remembered, steady, questioning, concerned. I could picture him at his desk, probably still working despite the late hour, his dark hair slightly disheveled from running it through his hands. "Ethan, I know this is insane, but I need you to marry me, tonight, in the next 11 minutes. Silence stretched between us like a chasm. "I'm listening," he finally said. I felt something crack open in my chest. Relief, maybe? Or desperation? I explained everything in a rush. Aunt Margaret's bizarre will, the $2 million, my mother's stage 4 diagnosis, the clinical trial in Switzerland that could save her life, the one that cost more than our house, more than our cars, more than everything we owned combined. "The courthouse is 6 minutes away if you run every red light." My voice was breaking. "Ethan, I know I have no right to ask this. I know we haven't talked since graduation, but you're the only person I trust enough to—" "Text me the address," he interrupted. "I'm already in my car." 5 minutes later, I stood outside the 24-hour courthouse. I was still in my work clothes, jeans and a bookstore t-shirt that smelled like old paper and coffee. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. Then I heard it, the rumble of an engine. Ethan's car pulled up with 3 minutes to spare. He emerged in a suit, slightly wrinkled, his tie loosened at the collar. "You kept a suit in your car?" I asked, stunned. He shrugged. A ghost of a smile touched my lips. "I'm a lawyer. Occupational hazard." His eyes met mine. Something passed between us, a recognition of the moment we were about to cross. "Are you sure about this, Claire?" I wasn't sure about anything, except my mother's CT scans and the doctor's grave expression when he said 6 months, maybe less. "I'm sure," I whispered. We walked into that courthouse as strangers reunited by desperation. We walked out as husband and wife at 11:58 p.m. with a marriage certificate that felt both weightless and impossibly heavy in my hands. The inheritance cleared the next morning, $2 million, my mother's chance of life. But I'd just married a man I barely knew anymore, and according to Aunt Margaret's will, we had to stay married for at least 1 year, living together, or I'd lose everything. Ethan's apartment was nothing like I expected. I'd imagined something sterile and minimalist, a lawyer's bachelor pad with leather furniture and no personality. Instead, I found myself in a space filled with books, framed photographs, and a piano in the corner thick with dust. "I haven't played in years," he admitted, catching me staring at it, "but I couldn't get rid of it." That first night, we sat on opposite ends of his couch, wedding rings glinting under the lamplight, and we drafted what Ethan called the terms of our arrangement. "Separate bedrooms," I suggested, my voice too formal. "Of course." He typed it into his laptop. What about finances? I'll transfer $500,000 to you once the year is up, for doing this. His fingers paused over the keyboard. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. But he just nodded. We should probably appear as a couple in public. Your aunt's lawyer said there could be checks to ensure the marriage is legitimate. And so began the strangest year of my life. We developed routines. Ethan made coffee at 6:30 every morning, too strong, burnt, terrible coffee that I learned to drink because the gesture mattered. I cooked dinner most nights. He'd tell me about his cases, carefully omitting client names, turning legal drama into stories that made me laugh. We went to his firm's holiday party as Mr. and Mrs. Cole. I wore a dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion. When he introduced me, his hand settled at the small of my back, warm through the fabric. I forgot how to breathe. You're good at this, I whispered as we swayed on the dance floor, pretending for an audience that didn't know our truth. At what? His breath stirred my hair. Acting like we're really married. His hand tightened slightly on my waist. Who says I'm acting? I pulled back to look at him, but his expression was unreadable, lawyer careful. The moments piled up like snowfall, quiet, gentle, accumulating into something I couldn't meme. Ethan reading case files while I curled up with a novel, our feet touching on the coffee table. The way he'd leave post-it notes on my bathroom mirror. Your mother called. She sounds stronger. You're doing this. The night I found him asleep at the kitchen table, his head pillowed on his arms, surrounded by research about experimental cancer treatments. Why do you care so much? I asked him once, late at night when we'd both had wine and our guards were down. We were sitting on his balcony, the cities spread out below us like scattered stars. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, do you remember sophomore year, your roommate's birthday party? I frowned, searching my memory. Vaguely, I didn't stay long. I was stressed about my comparative literature final. You stayed long enough, he said softly. I was there with Jessica Thornton. Everyone thought we'd end up together, but I spent the entire night watching you argue with Marcus Chen about whether Dostoevsky understood redemption. My heart stumbled. Ethan, you were so passionate, Claire, so alive. You believed in second chances, in people changing, in love as a choice rather than just a feeling. He turned to me, his eyes dark in the moonlight. That night, I realized I'd been dating the wrong person, but by the time I worked up the courage to tell you, you'd already graduated and moved away. The air between us felt electric, dangerous. Why didn't you ever... Because you deserved better than someone who'd already wasted years figuring out what he wanted, he said simply. You deserved someone who was sure from the beginning. I reached for his hand, threading our fingers together. And now? Now, he whispered, I'm sure. Everything changed on a Wednesday in March. I was at the bookstore when my sister Amy called. I knew immediately something was wrong. She never called during work hours. It's Mom, she choked out. She collapsed. Claire, they don't know if... I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I don't remember parking or running through the emergency room doors. I only remember Ethan appearing beside me as if summoned, his hand finding mine, anchoring me to earth when everything else was spinning. The experimental treatment had stopped working. My mother's body was rejecting it. The doctors were talking about palliative care, about making her comfortable, about time. I shattered. In a hospital waiting room that smelled like antiseptic and despair, I finally broke. All the fear I'd been holding back, all the desperate hope, it came pouring out in ugly, gasping sobs. Ethan held me. He didn't tell me it would be okay. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just held me while I fell apart, his heart steady against my ear. I can't lose her, I whispered into his shirt. Ethan, I can't. Then we won't let you, he said fiercely. I'm calling Dr. Werner in Berlin and Dr. Sato in Tokyo. We'll find something, Claire, I promise you. And he did. 3 days and countless international calls later, Ethan found a research team in Geneva running a new trial. They had 1 spot left. The cost was astronomical, but we had the money. We had the $2 million I'd married him to get. My mother flew to Switzerland the following week. The night before she left, she asked to speak with Ethan and me together. She looked fragile in her hospital bed, but her eyes were sharp, knowing. I've been watching you two, she said, reaching for both our hands. This marriage, it started as a business arrangement, didn't it? I froze. We'd been so careful, so convincing. Ethan's thumb stroked across my knuckles. Mrs. Hartwell. Linda, she corrected gently, and I'm not judging, sweetheart. I'm grateful. You saved my life, both of you. But I need to know, are you staying married out of obligation or because you want to? The question hung in the air like smoke. I looked at Ethan, at this man who'd dropped everything to marry a desperate woman at midnight, who'd held me while I cried, who'd called doctors across 3 continents to save my mother. Mom, I said slowly, I think I fell in love with my husband. Ethan's eyes met mine. The world narrowed to just us. You think? He asked, his voice rough with emotion. I know, I corrected. I know I love you. He kissed me then, in front of my mother, in a sterile hospital room, and it felt like coming home. About damn time, my mother said, laughing and crying simultaneously. I've been waiting for you two to figure it out for months. My mother's treatment in Geneva worked. 3 months later, her scans showed the tumors shrinking. 6 months after that, she was in remission. When she came home, Ethan and I had been living as a real couple for half a year. The separate bedrooms had been abandoned. The arrangement had transformed into something neither of us wanted to end. Our 1-year anniversary of that desperate courthouse wedding approached, and with it, the end of Aunt Margaret's condition. We could divorce now. The money was secure. My mother was alive. We could walk away. I don't want to walk away, Ethan said one morning over his terrible coffee. I looked up from my toast. What? From you. From this. He gestured around the apartment that had become ours. Claire, I know we got married for the wrong reasons, but staying married? That would be for exactly the right ones. My heart thundered. Ethan, marry me again, he interrupted, dropping to one knee right there in our kitchen, holding not a ring, but a USB drive. Properly this time, not because of money or deadlines or dying aunts with strange senses of humor. Marry me because you love me, because I love you, because this accidental marriage is the best thing that ever accidentally happened to me. What's on the USB? I asked, laughing through tears. A slideshow I made, terrible graphic design, questionable song choices, hundreds of photos from this year. He grinned sheepishly. I was going to present it at our vow renewal next month, but I couldn't wait. We're having a vow renewal? Your sister's been planning it for 3 months. You really think she'd let this go uncelebrated? I pulled him to his feet and kissed him. Yes, I whispered against his lips. Yes, I'll marry you again and again, as many times as you want. The vow renewal happened on a perfect September afternoon in my mother's garden. Amy officiated, making jokes about how she'd always known Ethan and I would end up together, even before we did. My mother cried. Ethan's parents flew in from Seattle. His mother hugged me like I'd already been her daughter for years. But the most important person there was the ghost of Aunt Margaret, whose bizarre will had engineered everything. We found her letter later, tucked into the inheritance paperwork. Ethan read it aloud while we sat on our balcony, the city lights twinkling below. Dearest Claire, if you're reading this, you've completed your year of marriage. I hope it wasn't too terrible. I also hope you figured out what I saw at your college graduation, that you and that young lawyer were desperately in love, but too stubborn to admit it. Life is short, darling girl. Love is rare. Sometimes people need a push, or in your case, a shove attached to $2 million and a ticking clock. Use the money wisely, live fully, love fiercely. And tell Ethan he still owes me a piano recital. All my love, Aunt Margaret. I laughed until I cried. She knew, the whole time she knew. She was a romantic, Ethan said, pulling me close. She was a meddler. Best meddler I ever met. He kissed my temple. Best $2 million I ever earned. I turned in his arms to face him. You didn't earn it. You earned something better. What's that? Me, I said simply. Us. This life we built from a midnight courthouse wedding and terrible coffee. He smiled, that full, genuine smile I'd fallen in love with. I'd do it all again, you know. The panic, the rush, the impossible deadline. I'd marry you 1,000 times over, Claire. Good, I whispered against his lips. Good, because we've only got 998 to go. And there, on our balcony, with the city spread out below us like infinite possibility, my husband kissed me, not because of an inheritance, not because of a deadline, not because of anyone's expectations, but because love, real love, is always a choice we make, and we chose each other, every day.
Sometimes the best love stories start with impossible choices. Ethan and I got married at 11:58 p.m. in a courthouse with no flowers, no guests, and no idea we'd fall in love. But we did, because real love isn't about perfect beginnings. It's about choosing each other every single day. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Would you marry a stranger for $2 million to save someone you love? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, stories about unexpected love, second chances, and the beautiful mess of being human, hit that subscribe button. I share romantic tales, emotional life stories, and daily affirmations to calm your mind. I'm here, telling stories in the quiet, and I hope you'll stay a while. Until next time, press play, breathe, and remember, you're not alone. This is Claire, signing off from Softly Still.